Hello there ladies and gentlemen, it's ASCII here for Nerf TV with a look at the PvP of the Elder Scrolls Online. PvP consists of a battle between the three warring factions and is held in Cyrodiil, the central province of Tamriel. We discussed the lore and the story of why the war is taking place, but the short version is they all want control of the Imperial City and the Ruby Throne within. ZeniMax claim that this would be the largest PvP battles ever seen in an online RPG, so in theory outstripping last year's Guild Wars 2, which implemented a very similar system as their form of PvP. That's a really bold statement to make. Large scale PvP like this comes with a plethora of problems. Now many of these were run into by ArenaNet after the release of Guild Wars 2, so hopefully ZeniMax have been paying attention. The huge scale meant that the game often had problems loading character models quickly, and it meant that large parties could run around the map attacking players before the client could even load them up. This feature was called culling, and it was intended to limit server bandwidth and resources, as well as reducing the resources on the client side so that you didn't need a particularly powerful computer to play the game effectively. It is intended users to make it so that players that were far away wouldn't load onto your screen until they got closer, but with the use of speed buffs, large groups could abuse the system by travelling faster than the system could react. The problem has since been resolved and the player can now control the draw quality and the character limit from their end, giving them the control of what they can see. This still comes with problems, as now gamers with more powerful rigs will be able to see more of the battlefield, but it's better than no one being able to see anything at all. Hopefully Elder Scrolls will have a similar client-side control, rather than the server-side culling. Other issues involve players from different real-world time zones night capping, meaning that when, for example, the US were asleep, the oceanic countries could take over their territories and while they were all undefended. This is a very difficult thing to counter. The developers can't stop people playing at those hours, but it can be damaging to the experience of other players if it becomes a major issue. Take for example a normal weekday. Most people play the game between, let's say, 6 PM and 11 PM, then they go to bed. At that point, other players from another time zone come on and capture all of the territories on the map. The players who went to bed wake up, but now they have to go to work or to school, and when they get back they've been out of control of their territories for more than half of the day. Even if they recapture everything over the next few hours, they're just going to lose it all again that night. This can become very frustrating, and it's not really anyone's fault. Those gamers who came on to play when most of the other players went to sleep are just playing when it's convenient for them. It's not their fault that everything was undefended. It's a serious issue with persistent PvP worlds and not something that's easily solvable. So another feature in ESO is the control of Elder Scrolls themselves. These are artifacts that aid alliances by providing buffs. Each alliance has a special hold which can house the scrolls. Enemy factions can break in and steal the scroll from another group and return it to their own hold for even more buffs. Now reading this threw up some real red flags to me. I played Guild Wars World vs World for a while, and they had an identical system at launch which was later removed. All it meant was that the strongest faction would eventually snowball, even as they gave more and more buffs, making it harder for the weaker two factions to make a comeback. It worries me that this is in here because it feels like they haven't really learnt from the mistakes others have made, and if they're doing something like this, how many other mistakes will also slip through the cracks? Time will tell, and maybe it will be executed in a different way, but I would much rather see buffs going to the factions that are outnumbered or losing very badly to try and keep the fight interesting. One group taking a massive lead really isn't fun for anyone. The losers just give up and the winners get bored. The next feature is territories. There are strategic territories including fortresses and surrounding farms, lumber mills and other resources that the factions must fight for. Now this is where the night capping I mentioned before might become a problem, but we'll have to see. Apart from that, this is a great sounding feature. This kind of PvP need things like this to allow the fighting to be concentrated on a specific area and create those epic battles that it was designed for. The resources surrounding the keep will also have an effect on the defence of the keep itself. The lumber mills keep up the door's strengths and also allows them to be repaired, farms make the NPC guards tougher, mines reinforce the walls and help to repair them. Taking control of these resources obviously makes the keep itself easier to take, but it also shuts down AI patrol routes around the keep. It's a nice system and it differs a little from the way that Guild Wars did it. There the resource camps were their own entities which were fairly easily captured. While they would supply resources to the camp directly, players could also carry the resources themselves. Most of the time this would take over the resource camps before attacking the keep, but not always, and it seems in ESO that the camps will have a much greater effect on the keep and be more important to bring down first. Now, you can't just tear down the walls of a fortress with your sword in hand. You're going to need some siege weapons. There's a nice mix of anti-building and anti-personnel weapons which will allow you to both attack and defend. They will cost gold or points. Gold can be transferred from PvE while points are earned purely through PvP. Balancing these weapons will be important as they need to be strong enough to be worth the money, but too strong and it becomes frustrating to fight against them. Siege weapons can also be a great way to allow a solo player to make a difference. While they won't be attacking a fortress by themselves, a well-placed siege weapon that could come to the rescue of their allies or defend a keep against a small group can be very useful. The weapons will also be mobile, either by rolling it like a battering ram or packing it up like a catapult. If the controller of the weapon is killed, players can set fire to it and it will be destroyed very quickly. The final major feature is that the highest ranked player of an alliance will be crowned Emperor upon their alliance taking control of the Imperial City. Emperors will receive special abilities that are a force to be reckoned with, however your alliance will have to maintain control of the strongholds to maintain your dominance. It's a nice feature, but it feels a little bit tacked on. It doesn't really make sense that any player can become the Emperor over the actual NPC leader of the faction. I know it's just nitpicky, but surely General or some other title would make more sense. Players will be able to join PvP from level 10, so pretty much as soon as you're done with the basics you'll be able to jump right into the action, which is great. For many players, PvP will be the main part of the game, and having to work their way through the entire story could get frustrating. Leaderboards and achievements will also allow you to track what you've done and see how you match up against others. You'll also be able to compare your alliance and guild to that of your friends and enemies. Some PvE elements will also be available, including quests. I'm undecided if this is a good idea or not. There are quite a number of players who don't like PvE mixing into their PvP too much, so execution here will be important. It shouldn't become a necessity or overly important for players to complete these elements, and they should really push players towards the PvP part of the game. What I don't want to see is things like bosses with huge HP pools that players will have to spend hours killing for loot rather than supporting their alliance in battle. Any PvE elements should be quick to complete and worth less than general PvP. There is the whole of the rest of the game to kill mobs, and it doesn't need to be included in this part of the game as well. I think for many people, Elder Scrolls Online will be a gateway MMO. It's coming from a seasoned single player series, and it's also being available on console. I think that means a large number of players are not going to be part of large guilds. This means that to keep numbers up and players interested, the PvP will also need to include things that can be done by a single player or small group. This will go a long way towards integrating players into the game and them eventually joining large PvP factions. It's not going to be an easy task, and they may make mistakes that don't give the PvP players a good experience. It can be very damaging to this section of the game in the long term. So in a nutshell, that's Elder Scrolls Online PvP. Without getting some long term hands on, it's hard to say how well it will work out. I pointed out at the start of this that there was a huge number of similarities to Guild Wars 2, and although it has its problems, the PvP there could be very satisfying. Its biggest fault was its initial teething problems, and if those can be resolved before the launch for Elder Scrolls Online, this could give the game some real long-term staying power. I hope you've all enjoyed this look at PvP in the Elder Scrolls Online. I've been ASCII here for NerfTV. Thank you all for watching.